is remember that factoring is the opposite of multiplication. Right? So previously, and what we had done on our quiz was if we were given some two parentheses like this, we were told to FOIL it out when we multiplied, right? We had to multiply everything in that first times everything in the second. So like 3x times x. Well, what is 3x times x? Good. And I also have to multiply that 3x by the negative 12. Well, what is 3x times negative 12? Negative. Good. Okay. But then I also have to multiply the 6 times everything in that second parenthesis. So 6 times x, which would give us, good, and 6 times negative 12, which is going to give us negative 72. Okay? And then once we've multiplied, we're supposed to go back and check to see if there are any like terms that we can combine. Do we have any like terms? All right, both of these just have an x, so we can combine those. Well, what is negative 36x plus 6x? Negative 30. Good. So I would have 3x squared minus 30x minus 72 as we combine those like terms. All right. So this is what we were factoring, right? So we're basically undoing what we just did. In the end, we want to end up with two sets of parentheses, okay? So it says the first thing that you should always look for is a GCF to factor out. So remember, GCF stands for greatest common factor. We're looking for something we can take out of all three terms. So is there anything that I can divide all of those by?
3.
3, right. 3 will go into all three of these. All right. So in this case, like you guys said, our GCF is 3. Okay? Now, before I can identify my sum and products, I got to actually go ahead and divide those by 3 to see what they would become. So if I take 3 out of 3x squared, what's left?
X squared.
Right? And if I divide negative 30x by 3, what are we left with? Negative 10x, good. And negative 72 divided by 3 is? Very good. All right, so this is what we have now that we've taken out our GCF. Now we're ready for step 2. Step 2 says we need to identify the sum and the product. Okay? Remember, our sum is going to be the term that's in the middle in front of the x, and our product should be the constant, the one that doesn't have any variables for it, and it should be at the end. Okay? So what is our sum? Good. And what is our product? Very good. Okay. Then it says for us to determine what our factors are going to be, or what we're going to put in the parenthesis, it has to multiply to give us the product, which for us is negative 24. And then for us to decide which numbers to use, they have to also add to give us our sum, which is negative 10. Okay? So what we did last time is we would just look at that number and try and break it down. Just try and come up with some things that multiply to give us negative 24. So what do we think? What would multiply to give us negative 24?
2 and negative 12.
2 and negative 12. Okay, I also heard somebody say something else.
6 negative 4.
Okay. And remember, I'm just checking to see which ones will add to give me negative 10, right? Well, what is 6 plus negative 4?
2.
2, so that can't work. Even if I switch it, it would just give me negative 2, right? What about 2 plus negative 12? Right, so that is exactly what we were looking for, right? So these must be the numbers that we need to use. Okay? So then we said this is how we will write our final answer. The first parenthesis right here is where you put the GCF. What was our GCF?
2.
Our GCF?
3.
3. Okay, and then we put these two numbers that we picked in the parentheses. Our first number was a positive 2, so I should put x plus 2 in that first parenthesis. The second number we picked was negative 12, so it'll say x minus 12 in this parenthesis. Okay? So, now that we kind of refreshed ourselves on that process from last week, let's look at a couple more examples. Okay? So, step 1, we look for a GCF. Does this one have a GCF? Okay. So that means I'm going to go through here, divide everything by 2. If I divide 2x squared by 2, what's left? Good. If I divide negative 6x by 2, what's left? Good. And if I divide negative 36 by 2, we're left with negative what? Alright. So now we've fixed the equation. We need to identify the sum and the product. So what's our sum? Right, the number here in the middle is the sum, negative 3. And what's our product? Right. Okay, so now I just need to pick some numbers that will multiply to give me negative 18. Okay, so he said 6 and negative 3. Okay. 6 times negative 3 is negative 18, but it adds to give us positive 3, right? So what do you think we need to use?
Negative 6 and positive 3.
Right. That one didn't work, but negative 6 and positive 3 does add to give us the negative 3 that it was supposed to. Okay. So now I need to write my final answer. We put our GCF first. Our GCF was 2. And then we have a parenthesis that says x. And our first number we picked, which was, and then x, perfect, for our second parenthesis. Okay? All right. Number 2. So they just ask in a funny way, but they want us to factor. It says, how could x squared minus 11x plus 28 be expressed as the product of two binomials? These are binomials. There's 2 of them. They're in parentheses, which means to multiply. That's what product means. Okay? So they still just want us to factor. Is there a GCF in there? No. Okay? So what's the sum? And what's the product? Good. Okay, so we're thinking of numbers that will multiply to give us 28. Okay. Anything else? 4 and 7, good. Okay. Now we can see that they multiply to give us a positive, but they're supposed to add to give us a negative number. So that means both of them are going to have to be what?
Negative.
Right. Okay. So let's check and see which one works. Negative 2 plus negative 14. Is that negative 11? It's going to have to be negative 4 plus negative 7 because that does add to give us negative 11. Okay. So now I write my final answer. First we would put our GCF, but we didn't have one, so I don't have to put anything in front. So I just make my first parenthesis. I'm going to put x. What was our first number? And then another parenthesis with x. Good. All right. Number 3, same thing. Factor the following binomial. Still just factoring. Okay. So first thing I look for is a GCF. Is there one? No. Okay. No GCF. Okay. Then I look for the sum. The sum is supposed to be in the middle with just an x. Do we have one? No. So I'm going to have to put 0 there. There's not one there. Okay? And what's our product? Very good. Okay. So now I'm going to ask myself, what could multiply to give me negative 25 and add to give me 0? Positive 5 times a negative 5 would give me negative 25, and 5 plus negative 5 is going to give us 0. Okay. So there was no GCF, so nothing in front of my parentheses. I put x, and the first number we picked was positive 5, and then x, and the second number we picked, which was negative 5. Okay. Number 4. Any GCF? Nope. Okay, so what is my sum? And what is our product? Good. Okay, so it's got to multiply to give us negative 10 and add to give us 3. So what are some things that would multiply to give us negative 10? Okay. 2 plus negative 5. Is that going to give me positive 3? No, it gives us negative 3, right? So close. Yes. Negative 2, positive 5. All right, so then our answer would be x minus 2 and x plus 5.
Doesn't it matter how you put it? You can put x minus 5 and x plus 5.
In the first parenthesis? Yes, you could do that. As long as they have the right sign. Okay. All right, flip it over on the back. A number 5. Does this one have a GCF? Good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and divide all of these by 3. And if we divide that term by 3, what's going to be left?
X squared plus 10x plus 3.
Good. All right, so now that we pulled out our GCF, what do we know the sum is?
10.
Good. And the product?
9.
Good. Okay, so now I have to ask myself, what will multiply to give me 9 and add to give me 10?
1 and 9.
1 and 9, good. Okay, so now I just write my final answer. GCF in front, x plus 1, and x plus 9. Okay. Eventually, I want us to be able to factor without having to make this list over here, right? So you're just going to know, I take out my GCF, and without making your list, know you want it to multiply to give you this and add to give you this, okay? We're still just practicing now, so you can still make the list. All right, any GCF? What's the GCF? Good. All right, so I'm going to divide both of my numbers by 4. And what's that going to leave us with? X squared minus. Okay. All right. So my sum, what is it?
And 1.
0. Because there's not one there, right? There is no sum. Okay. Product. Okay, so what multiplies to give me negative 9 and adds to give me 0? Good. So let's multiply to give us negative 9 and do add to give us 0. So GCF in front, and then we'll have x minus 3 and x plus 3. Okay? Alright, so number 7 says the toy shown below is made of several wooden blocks that fold together to form a rectangular prism or unfold to form a ladder. What expressions can be used to represent the dimensions of the toy when it is folded up? And they tell us that this is the volume, right? Okay, well, just like we've been doing on this entire worksheet, we're probably just supposed to factor, right? So I've got 6x cubed plus 18x squared plus 12x. Okay, and the first thing that we want to look for is a GCF.
6x.
Good. So I divide all of these terms by 6x. Okay. So if I take 6x out of 6x cubed, what's going to be left?
X squared.
Good. And 18x squared divided by 6x.
3x.
Good. And 12x divided by 6x.
2.
Good. Okay, so we have our GCF of 6x. What are my sum and products?
2.
Good. Okay, and what's the only thing that's going to multiply to give us 2 and add to give us 3?
2 and 1.
2 and 1. Very good. Alright, so put our GCF in front. Then in my first parenthesis, I have x plus 2. And in my second parenthesis, I have x plus 1. Okay? And we should know that to find volume, the formula is length times width times height, right? So, when we broke it down, did we find a length, a width, and a height? Yep. So we must have factored correctly because we did come up with 3 measurements. All right. The last one says which one of the functions is equivalent to 4x squared plus 7x minus 2. Okay. So there's a number in front of x squared, and we always want to get rid of that, right? But does 4 go into 7 and 2?
No.
No. So I'm not going to be able to factor it like we have been. But we had a question like this on our last set of notes, and we said what we do know how to do is FOIL these out, right? And we can just see which one of these matches them. So which letter do you guys want to start with? B. Okay. All right. X times 4x squared would be?
4 squared.
Good. X times negative 1.
Negative 1x.
2 times 4x.
8x.
Good. And 2 times negative 1.
Negative
Good. And then we just go back and combine our like terms, and negative x plus 8x is going to give us
2. 7.
perfect. And that is what we started with. Okay. Lucky for us, Braden looked ahead. Let us do the best one first.